Hi everyone, Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist here. And as always, I'm here with my sidekick and my co-host, the Boner, Bonalicious. Anyway, so let me begin my video with my usual shtick of my disclaimer. The information you're about to receive is for educational purposes only, is not intended to treat, prescribe, or diagnose any specific medical condition, and it is not to be used as a substitute for your primary healthcare provider's diagnosis, treatment, or information. That is also always below in the description, okay? So today's topic of conversation is going to be a little bit of an extension on a few videos I've done on this channel, and I'm entitling it Marketing versus Reality, a Master Herbalist's Perspective. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I see products online or I see products in the store and then I look at what's in them, what they're marketed for in many cases is grossly misinforming. And I think it's important to set the record straight, as they say. I don't know why I did that in a weird accent, but that's just what I do. I just go off on these crazy little tangents, you know? Anyway, so I guess there are a few herbs that I can think of just off the top of my head that I'd want to talk about, where they are put under these general categories, but when it comes to how they're marketed or how they're shown in a product, but the reality is actually a little bit different. So I'm going to go over a few of those. And then after that, I'm going to talk about formulas. And again, I've spoken about this, not very much in depth per se, but I've spoken slightly about this topic when it comes to formulations and why it's very difficult for a company to make a formula for the masses, or why only a handful of companies really understand how to properly formulate for the masses. That's what I really should say. It's not that it's difficult, it's more that only a handful of companies, specifically my top 4 picks, they really have a great ability to properly formulate for the masses. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the herb Valerian. Now, I have spoken about this before and this topic slightly before, but I'm going to continue to go back over it because it seems to be this grossly misunderstood herb. So when I talk about Valerian, and when people talk about Valerian, if you base it simply off of how it's marketed, everyone will think it is the greatest sleep herb on God's green earth. They will also think that it is defined as a sedative. A sedative is something that will help to literally put you to sleep. In herbal medicine, there are only a few true sedatives where their primary mechanism of action is to work as a sedative. The number one, I would say, would be hops. There's no doubt in my mind hops is absolutely going to be a sedative. Valerian is not a sedative. And when you often hear about people talking about Valerian, you generally don't see a very high percentage of people who use Valerian because they believe it to be a sedative. You only see, probably my guess, and again, my numbers may be a little off, but this is based on people I've spoken to and people who've come to me for help, or even other herbalists who've had their experiences with Valerian. The truth is that most people, it does not help them sleep, because I would say maybe about 30% of the people who use it for the purpose of sleep get help with sleep. And the reason more than anything is because Valerian is actually an anxiolytic, which means it is an anti-anxiety herb, and it is an antispasmodic, which means that if your body is locked up or in spasm in any way, It is something that helps to reduce that feeling of feeling locked up and in spasm. And obviously you understand what anxiolytic or anti-anxiety means. It's important to distinguish these things because if the reasons you're not sleeping is because you're in spasm or because you are dealing with anxiety, then those are the scenarios in which Valerian will aid in your ability to be able to sleep better. Again, Valerian will not put you to sleep because Valerian is not a sedative, antispasmodic and anxiolytic, okay? So if you're using it before bed or for the purposes of as a sleeping aid, understand that if you do not have anxiety or you're not locked up with spasms or any of that or any of those other situations, and that could be where your mind is like sort of very frazzled as well. That's how I'm also defining spasm here. If those are not the cases, then Valerian will be little if any help to you, okay? So that's really, really important to understand, okay? I'm going to give you a really good example of this. I may be rushing ahead, but I really think that this is a really, really important example. So the company Christopher Herbs makes a product called Mindtrack. And this product is actually marketed towards people who have ADD, ADHD, anxiety, panic issues, okay? That sort of broad spectrum umbrella. And the first ingredient in this herb, in this formula, is valerian root extract powder. It's a 4-to-1 extract. Now, there are many other herbs in here, but I want you to see how this is something that this formula and this company encourages you to take according to the label. For a tonic dosage, you're to take 2 capsules 3 times a day to start. And you should speak to, of course, an herbalist or a healthcare practitioner in regards to if that dosage does need to be increased. But the point I'm making here is if valerian is the first item in here, then if valerian was a true sedative, you would be asleep after the first 2 capsules. That is not the purpose of why we use valerian. This is a great example of a formula for why or how valerian should be used as an antispasmodic and an anxiolytic. Bam, done. All right. The second herb in this case is St. Johns Wort. Now, St. Johns Wort has been preached about and is spoken about as a antidepressant, okay, or has been known to have antidepressant-like qualities. And this, too, for me, is one of the issues I take with how people market St. Johns Wort. Because, again, you're putting this under a gigantic umbrella, and I'm not a big fan of this. If an area wants to be respected, you need to clarify these larger statements. Not everything can be looked at from a bird's eye view. You have to sometimes be a hawk and hone in on shit because it's the detail, the devil is in the details, as the expression goes. So, much like ADHD, where there are many kinds of ADHD and many forms of ADHD, okay? Depression, there isn't just one form of depression. There are lots of different forms of depression, okay? And to just say you're either depressed or you're not is a very ignorant and very old-fashioned, old-school way of thinking. And it's not looking at you as the individual. You're not just depressed. When you're depressed, there are many forms of depression, okay? And St. Johns Wort as a single herb has only really been proven to be very effective in 1 or 2 of those forms of depression, okay? The rest of them as a part of a formulation, it's been shown to be fairly effective. But what St. Johns Wort is actually really effective for is specifically for nerve pain or nerve issues, okay? And originally, one of the things, and you'll still find this in some what you call winter formulas, for lack of better terms, it was also spoken about for many years as being a very strong antiviral herb. Okay, but in general, it where it really tends to shine is for nerve health and nerve pain. Okay, so to call it a strict or a straight, let's say, antidepressant is quite misleading. It really is, because depending on the kind of depression you have will depend on how effective St. Johns Wort actually really is. Okay, so I think those are two really good examples of herbs that are very well known and I think that are grossly mismarketed, and people are very confused and misinformed because, again, my experience as an herbalist, St. John's wort only tends to work about 20 or 30% of the time when it comes to depression. And the reason that is because it really will, let's say, out of almost maybe 9 or 10 different forms of depression that are out there, and there could be more than that, but in general, the general, 9 or 10 forms of depression that are out there, only really is it been really shown to be effective for about 2 of them. Okay, so again, that's why I don't like these umbrella terms and these generalizations, because it's just simply it can be very misleading, and to me, what it does is it makes people's experience with herbal medicine become very negative. Oh, I tried this, it didn't work. I don't want to use herbs anymore. And that's usually how things go. So to me, if a field wants to show their integrity and wants to have integrity, you need to be able to nail these things down a little bit more detail oriented. Not everything can be broad spectrum. And this is part of the problem when you have a marketing company or someone who specializes in marketing running your company. When you have someone who's in marketing running your company, they're more interested in how people respond to what they see versus what is true facts. And a lot of people get pissed when I say it, but that's what I say to those people. So, in regards to formulas for the masses, okay, I don't want to, I know I've said this statement in the past and I'm revamping my statement. I don't want to say it's hard to make a formula for the masses. What I will say is that if you're a knowledgeable herbalist and you're a good herbalist, you know how to effectively and properly make one for the masses. And the reality is that a broad spectrum formula for the masses is oftentimes going to be in the company's best interest, because broad spectrum means it covers a wide variety of intrinsic issues that go along with that bigger issue. For example, I've spoken about this in the past. The formula Sound Sleep from Gaia Herbs. I think that, in my opinion, if you want to talk about a broad spectrum formula for sleep, that really covers a lot of the issues for why people may have issues sleeping, whether it's pain or anxiety, or you can't shut your mind off, or you're in spasm, or you need a sedative. This covers the full gamut, and it's a very effective formula. I have yet to have met anyone personally who either I had suggested the formula to or they found out about it on their own that did not find it to be extremely effective. Okay? So oftentimes what you find is when a company focuses on producing a formula that nourishes a system, whether it's the cardiovascular system, whether it's the nervous system, or nourishing an organ, okay, which is a little bit more targeted, okay, those are the formulas that tend to have the most profound effect on the masses, okay, versus those that target a very specific condition, okay? Because again, if you're dealing with a sleep issue and your lead herb, shall we say, is valerian, well, again, if you're not dealing with spasm or anxiety, the reality is that you may not get the most effective end result from something like that. So when you don't, when a company focuses on nourishing a system or an organ versus targeting a specific condition, you're going to get a better end result, okay? Because again, when you target a specific condition, the issue becomes that not everybody has that same condition for the same reasons, or not everybody's response and the way their body is dealing with that condition is going to be the same. So, I was just speaking about the formula Sound Sleep in my last video. I also spoke about this product from Herbs, etc., called Deep Sleep. Now, deep sleep I find to be very effective, but here's the thing people need to understand. This, to me, while it's a great formula and it is one of my picks, one of my top picks for sleep, it's not a broad spectrum sleep formula, okay? Deep sleep, the primary two ingredients in here are California poppy and valerian. And of course it has other things like passion flower and chamomile, but when you look at what's most profound here, you're talking about an antispasmodic and anxiolytic like valerian, and you're talking about an analgesic or pain reliever like California poppy. So this has this is what I would consider a more targeted approach formula. Will it be effective for everyone? No. The reason, because unless the cause of why you're not sleeping is anxiety, pain, or you can't shut your mind off, then this won't be very effective. Because in reality, there's no what I would consider to be true sedatives in here. If the issue is you need a true sedative as a part of it, let's say you're in pain and you need a true sedative, you're gonna have to buy some hops on the side and add it to when you take this formula. So I think that's really important to understand. Now, when I was referring to before when it comes to nourishing a system, okay, this is really important. This is a wonderful item from Gaia Herbs. Now, this is called Emotional Balance. It used to be called Mood Uplift, okay? And this is a great formula when it comes to nourishing your nervous system, okay? So again, the reason why it was originally, why they changed, I can't specifically speak on why they changed the name, but the reason why it's called Emotional Balance is because, in my opinion, why the name change was a good change is mostly because it's not just about uplifting your mood. This too is about nourishing the nervous system, nourishing your emotions and your mood. And the reason why is because this is a good example, another good example of why it's important to make a formula with herbs that are going to be very nourishing to the targeted organ or the targeted system versus targeting a specific condition, okay? So here's an example of this. The first ingredient in this is organic oat milky seed extract. Now, why does that show already from the first ingredient that this is a good nourishing formula? Is because the queen of neurorestoratives and nourishing the nervous system is milky wild oats. So already the first ingredient, bam, they put the perfect herb in there as the number one ingredient. The next ingredient in here is St. Johns Wort. Again, nourishing the nerves, nourishing nerve endings, nourishing the, targeting nourishing nerves, okay? The third one is passion flower, okay? Broad spectrum, a wonderful nervine, one of the most powerful, in my opinion, of all the nervine herbs. And again, remember, what is it good for? Slowing down the mind, shutting down that 0 to 100 feeling where you can't shut your mind down, okay? Especially at nighttime, okay, when you're lying in bed. But again, a strong, nourishing nervine, okay? And then, of course, the other ingredients in here are vervain and schisandra, schisandra being a adaptogenic herb, goticola leaf, ginkgo, and rosemary, all of which are nourishing. Ginkgo biloba nourishes and supports healthy blood flow. And rosemary, again, all of these herbs are very, even though they all have specific mechanisms of action, the one thing they all tend to have in common is that they have really wonderful nourishing qualities to the nervous system as a general broad spectrum, which is why, again, this is another great formula, okay? So, again, the purpose of why I made this specific video is I want to bring a little bit more of a clarity to some of the statements I made in the past when it comes to formulations, when it comes to nourishing and versus targeting specific things. And I guess the primary purpose for this video is, more than anything, is to clarify this idea of why you don't look at the marketing aspect of a product or an herb. You look at what the herb is really used for. When you look at a label and it says that it's a sleep formula, turn the label over and look at the actual herbs in this formula. And then you'll really know if it is a sleep formula, and more importantly, if it's the right sleep formula for your specific needs. So I hope this was helpful to you all. Till next time, Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist, Bones co-host. I'll see you soon.